Justin Bidan Muturi is in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning. Bwana Muturi, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm good.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
Good to have you here.
Yes.
It's been a while since we've been hoping you would come. But, no time like the present, as they say. So it's good to have you here this morning.
I'm happy to be here too.
As we normally do, we're going to start off this morning with a proverb. Mark is going to tell you the country that we are in, and we'd like to hear your interpretation of the proverb. Something tells me that this one, you'd have an interesting thing to say about it.
Well, we think this one will actually hit home. So the country is Libya, and what are people from Libya called?
Libyans.
Not Libyanese.
No, those are Lebanese.
Yeah.
Okay.
He who keeps the company of a dog will bark. He who keeps the company of a dog will bark. Yes, and we did not prepare it special for you.
He who keeps
the company of a dog will bark.
Quite an interesting one. I hope you don't want me to begin interpreting it.
We do.
No, but that's the whole point.
Well, they also say that they shall be known by the company, the company that they keep.
Yes.
So, if you keep the company of thieves, you are most likely to also do what thieves do. Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And
no
I guess
Alibaba was not alone.
And I guess that opens up conversations for us that we'll have this morning. You're the former Attorney General and most recently former Cabinet Secretary. Very many events led to those two positions being former, and some of those will open up into this hour. You've also been quite in the public eye a lot. Most recently, because then of declarations and almost, in my opinion, pleas that you made towards sorting out certain things. I want us to start this conversation around the abductions and asking where the buck actually does stop, because it has grabbed the nation by storm, especially going into administration where we were told that these things were a thing of the past, but that it is possible that in the last year we've seen more abductions and disappearances than we have seen collectively over a longer period of time. Most recently, the president said that all of those who had been abducted had been returned to their families. Speculation is rife as to whether he knew about who took these individuals, where they were taken, and why they were taken. You then came out and almost gave a proclamation of vindication. Like, you've been saying this whole time. Somebody knows where these people are. Somebody knows who's been taking them. Your son was taken and, by your own admission, released at the intervention of the president. Now, when it comes to these abductions, who is responsible according to you?
Good. Thank you very much for that quite a mouthful. But I think it is appropriate. And I will not repeat what you've said, because it is most of it is well in the public domain already. But suffice to say that I was part of the Kenya Kwanza campaign team after I joined the coalition upon request and pleas from President Ruto, who was then at that time the leader of the nascent coalition at the time. When he persuaded me and I joined his bandwagon, and I signed a coalition agreement with Kenya Kwanza as the leader of the Democratic Party. Among other things that I was attracted to join that coalition was the clear declaration that we would never, in our administration, if we won the elections, allow on our watch any forms of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances, and that we would, and I mean, the country is aware of this, we would abide by the dictates of our constitution. And when reading through what this we were preparing as the manifesto for the party, it looked quite attractive in the area of my great interest, which is the area of governance. Having been Speaker, and indeed at that time as I joined, I was still Speaker of the National Assembly during my second term, and I had already expressed my desire not to do a third term, because I felt that 2 terms is long enough. So I felt that I needed to just join if we won, to join the executive at the national level, so as to feel, to be in that rare grouping of very, very few Kenyans who've put in several years in the judiciary, several years in the legislature, both as a member of parliament and, finally a speaker. So I was excited to join this team, and because of the issues that they had brought on the table. Fast forward. Remember, after an election and declaration of the results, that what follows was preparations for the swearing in of the new president and their deputy. President Ruto appointed me to be one of his key people in the transition committee, and I was excited doing what I was doing, because I felt that now we have a new beginning for the country. In order to be able to respond to the question that you first raised, at whose back does the blame stop? I would want to respond that, as we all know, the president and any other person, before taking office, the dictate of the constitution is that they shall swear an oath. And I would want to just read, if you go to the 3rd schedule of the constitution, that's the one that provides for the oath that is prescribed for the president. It is the first one on the 3rd schedule. And it is important in order to respond to this, the question that you have raised, that I believe actually it is one that is exercising the minds of many Kenyans. This oath, among other things, the president swears to obey, preserve, protect, and defend this constitution. Those 4 ones are important in order to answer the question. And it concludes by saying that the president shall protect and uphold the sovereignty, integrity, and dignity of the people of Kenya. Now, those are very solemn words the president swears to do. Now, indeed, if you go to the authority of the president in the constitution, again, as provided for in Article 131, it enjoins the president to protect, defend, preserve, and uphold the constitution. It further enjoins him to protect and safeguard the dignity of the Kenyan people. Now, so the president is bound upon taking office by the oath. And I'm saying this because you have seen, I'm sure, whenever cabinet secretaries or principal secretaries are being sworn in at State House, the president, in his first remarks, he reminds the newly appointed state officers, be they cabinet secretaries, be they attorney general, be they principal secretaries, he always takes time to remind them of the oath they have taken. I've always assumed that in doing so, he also remembers that he took a solemn oath to do certain things. Now, we have a robust Bill of Rights in Chapter 4 of our Constitution, which provides, among other things, the right to life in Article 26. Indeed, the right to life is one of those ones that you cannot limit. So, when things begin happening, and remember, as Commander-in-Chief, and also the Chairman of the National Security Council, the presidency bears very, very great responsibility to Kenyans to ensure the protection of their safety, their lives, their livelihoods, etc.
Okay.
All those rights which are provided for in the bill. So now, here comes a situation. Kenyans are exercising their democratic rights as provided for in the Constitution, in that same Bill of Rights. As a consequence, violence is unleashed on them. I would say very disproportionate violence is unleashed on innocent citizens. And as we know, which is now already, it's almost a cliche, these were young demonstrators. As a consequence, a number are killed, others abducted. To date, we have families that have not been able to trace their loved ones, arising from those events of last year and subsequent events. And indeed, others running beyond the time of the demonstrations. What else can Kenyans be expected to do other than to ask the president, Mr. President, you so to defend our rights, our dignity, our sovereignty? Never mind that Article 1 says that actually sovereign power belongs to the people.
To the people.
Yeah.
At the time when these things were happening, Bwana Muturi, you were a cabinet secretary. It is known in the public that your son was abducted, taken by whom we do not know. But we also know that it is in public at the moment that you made a call for intervention from the president. But you remained in office. And we didn't hear much about what happened at that time until after you were no longer in office. If your son had not been taken, would we hear you speaking in this manner?
Thank you very much for the question, and I think it's an appropriate one. I was actually not, at that time, I was not actually a cabinet secretary.
Yeah,
I was the
Attorney General. You were in office. This is what I said.
I was actually a member of the National Security Council. And, things are discussed in a particular way in the National Security Council. And I'm sure the membership is well known to all of us, chaired by the president, his deputy is a member, CS National Defense, CS Foreign Affairs, CS Interior, the AG, the IG, the DG of NIS, the CDF. And then some others who had been, who in our time, who had been co-opted. So decisions are made in a particular way there. I want to confirm to the country that at no time has there been raised before the National Security Council the issue of abductions, forced disappearances, or extrajudicial killings? Never. And the way business and government is transacted, there are people referred to as line ministries or institutions or line ministers. So a matter that falls within a particular docket is supposed to be processed through that ministry or the cabinet, the relevant cabinet secretary, so that it becomes a matter now for discussion and possibly a resolution one way or the other. So this matter the matter of abductions and all these have never been raised. They have never arisen. We discuss issues to do with other issues to do with national security, but these issues have never been raised. I also want to confirm here, contrary to what President Ruto said on that 1st of March at State Launch Sagana, that the issue of abductions and extrajudicial killings were discussed, debated in cabinet, and resolved one way or other. I want to categorically state that has never happened, because, and they are facts. When I raised my issues, I went on to write letters, 3 letters to the president as to why I felt that these matters now have become so serious in the country that they are likely to plunge this country into chaos.
While you were still in office?
Yes.
Okay.
And 3 letters. I distributed them to the media not too long ago, about a month or so ago.
But you wrote these letters to the president while you were still serving as Attorney General?
No, while I was now Cabinet
While
Secretary.
you were now Cabinet Secretary?
Yes.
Is when you told him that the state at which things were operating in terms of abductions then was unacceptable.
It's unacceptable.
Okay.
So let me say this. One would say, oh, if it never affected you, you'll never have spoken about it.
Okay.
I don't think whether that is a correct statement, because, as I said, government operates in a particular way. I may not be at liberty to disclose how our business is transacted, both at cabinet and at National Security Council, because I think it will be unfair. I don't want to be reminded by the young man called Mulcoman, who I saw the other day talking about people, disclosing cabinet decisions. We see cabinet dispatches after every cabinet meeting. We've never seen a dispatch saying that cabinet has discussed the issue of abductions and judicial killings.
Yeah.
What he was trying to allude to at that time, although I think the young man is excited, is about the issues to do with grand corruption.
Yes.
There can never be official secret about grand corruption. If you discuss it, you cannot be accused of divulging cabinet
decisions or matters. But
and there has never been a collective decision taken by cabinet to condone or participate in corruption.
So this is the thing, if I may, that having your child taken is a harrowing experience, whether it is Justin Muturi or whether it is Mama Mukuria, right? And you were in a position where you could pick up the phone and call the president to ask for an intervention. Mukuria's mother is not. And the perception of the public then is extremely important, when it would appear as though you were then speaking about these things when something had gone politically sour. That if you go through that experience where you don't know where your son is, that there are hundreds of other fathers and mothers, Kenyans, who are going through the same thing, but they do not have the privilege of power to make the phone call. So the question is, at that time, through that harrowing experience, publicly as well, why was it not made public that there's something not sitting right with you, even in the position where you are? Why not speak up about it? This is Kenyans asking this question.
Thank you very much. I think it's. I appreciate the question. And let me say, I did not actually make a call to the president.
Okay.
I drove myself to State House when all efforts, the Director of Intelligence thrice refused to pick my calls. I tried to get to the DCI. I wasn't going through, but his deputy later called me. I tried to call the guy in charge of anti-terror police unit because I had information that whatever had happened to my son involved some cartel of officers. That's the information I had, but I had no way of verifying that. The then CS Interior, now Deputy President Kindiki, also called me, PS Omolo. All of them said no, government agencies were not involved. I said, but I had some other information from some other sources within the NIS itself that we are the ones who are holding your son. And therefore, I said, this is nonsense. I had said, if you read my statement to the police, and it has never been contradicted, but neither by the president or by any of the people that I've mentioned there, because I speak facts. I drove to State House. I told the president, because I had sent him a text message the previous night at 3 a.m., but from my phone, it was showing he has not read the message. That's when he went and told me that his phone had crashed. In fact, he had left it behind when he went for a church service in Nyandarua. Remember, in my statement, I said I saw his chopper flying back into State House. I was not even a meter away from the president. He was just standing. I mean, there was nothing really for me to. There would be no reason for me to stand a meter away from the president. Yeah? But my question, and when I told him what had happened, and I told him, call Nuldin. He called Nuldin, and I could hear. It was within earshot. He called Nuldin, and Nuldin said, yes, sir. Yes, we are the ones having him. He will be home in the next 1 hour.
Why did they take him?
And to date, that has never been disclosed. My son recorded a statement much earlier than me, actually, contrary to some perceptions some people are trying to create. He recorded a statement. But he told me, they were asking him about the Gen Z riots, as to whether he had been funding them. Okay. And he told them, please just look through my phone. If you see whether there's any evidence of anything suggesting that I may have been funding anybody. No other question.
You know, my questions are two. First, the NIS should not have the ability to arrest and detain any Kenyan. I don't think that's within their charter. But secondly, as things went awry between you and the president, there was a case yesterday about whether you resigned or not as Attorney General. Then there's the issue of you staying on and complaining after you were appointed to the CS position. What exactly was going through your mind? What was happening? Because as a minister, as a CS as well, you could talk about the fact that if indeed the NIS was abducting people, which is a capacity they are not supposed to have, the illegality of that, and then your continued stay in cabinet, even as you raised these issues.
Thank you very much, Mark, for that question. And I know I've answered it in several other fora, but there's no harm in reiterating my position. One, the NIS, as you correctly point out, even in their own law, fortunately, I took part in passing that law when I was a member of parliament, so I know it very well. They are not supposed to make any arrests whatsoever. It is not within their purview. Yes. But somehow, what has transpired is that they are actively involved in those acts. And I'm sure, remember, one of the things I've called for is, and I said this because I put myself in just to actually answer the question she asked. Mm-hmm. I was lucky that I was holding that position and could drive to State House and face the president. I put myself in the shoes of the many hundreds of Kenyan citizens, relatives, friends who have no access to a president. They are still, as I said earlier, there are some who are still grieving.
Yes.
Because they have not, either their loved ones have been killed in unclear circumstances, having been abducted. Others are still not accounted for to date. So I put the question I put this issue to the president. I told him I was extremely disappointed when he called Nuldin, and Nuldin said that my son is going to be released within 1 hour. I said, I'm extremely disappointed that Nuldin sits with me in National Security Council, which you chair. Even if there was anything about my son, why not just arrest and take him to court? If he was suspected of having committed any crime, why would he be involved in such heinous acts? And also, again, to respond to your issue, the mere fact that Nuldin admitted to having my son and undertaking to the president to release him within 1 hour, which happened actually, is clear evidence that the NIS is involved in things that they are not within the law supposed to.
Okay.
Which is the issue of whether we call them abductions, arrests, or whatever. They are not supposed to be engaged in that kind of thing. So, indeed, and I kept saying this thing every time I sought answers. The usual story. This matter is under active investigation. In fact, your son recorded a statement just there because he recorded a statement, and several of the other people, including Mark Mwenje, the MP for Embakasi West, who was with him, and the other young man, Getofi Manyara's son, who was in his car. They all recorded statements. But every time I tried to find out what is happening, how far have you gone? Because I wanted to know. I wanted to get the bottom of the matter. The matter is still being pursued. Mm-hmm. The investigation is happening. But of course, a lot of the other things is really history. It is not, nobody ever gives you any conclusive answer.
Yeah.
And I keep wondering, since I recorded my statement with the police, I remember I was challenged. When I issued a statement on 12th of January this year, I was challenged by the DCI to go and record a statement with the Kiliman DCIO, which I obediently did on the 14th of January. To date, nobody has ever contradicted that statement.
Okay.
And I keep wondering, what is this other things? Instead, even of the president or any other person saying what Muturi is saying is not correct because of ABC, all I've seen is they keep sending some hirelings, to go and to talk shows,
yes,
to come and say, why is he talking about his son? His son is 40 years. Even if it was my mother, 90-something years, I would still speak
about it.
I mean, you look at the kind of challenges they keep throwing. It's only that I feel like I really can't respond to those young men and women that they send to studios to talk about that issue, because here they don't respond to the issues. We are saying abductions, extrajudicial killings, forced disappearances are outlawed in our constitution.
And stick to that.
In fact, as Attorney General, I do recall one time representing the President of the United Nations committing Kenya to ensuring that there shall never be for any form of forced disappearances of citizens.
We're going to go to a break, but I mean, it's the question that we started with. So, whose responsibility is it to ensure that these things, which are clearly outlined in the Constitution, which you've read, actually come to a stop? The president?
You want my answer?
Yes.
Let me say this. Reading the Constitution in the context of what has happened. One, on 28th of December, remember, the president in Homa Bay, when challenged, he's saying that he will end abductions. In October last year, at a town hall meeting in Kisumu, when asked by one of the members of the audience, he said that he didn't know of anybody who had been abducted. You remember him challenging and telling the person who questioned him to see P.S. Raymond Omolo? Now, following what the president, in answer to a question by some foreign journalists on Monday this week at State House, he said that he has ended all those things, and all those who had been abducted have safely been taken back to their families. Well, for me, I think it is not rocket science. And given my own circumstance, where he called the director of a National Intelligence Service to release my son, I have absolutely no qualms in my mind, no doubts that the buck must stop with the president.
Justin B. Muturi is our guest this hour, looking at a number of issues. Clearly stated at the end of that break, the buck stops with the president in terms of these abductions and sorting out all of these issues.
I have a question. My question is, how long have you known President William Ruto? Before becoming president, actually, how long had you known him as a person?
Well, let me say, I went into Parliament in 1999, and William Ruto had just served 1 year when I joined him, and I got to know him at that time.
And you basically had a lot of interactions with him, I believe, politically.
Politically, yes, because as you would recall, after the 2002 general elections, when KANU was whitewashed by NAC, we were thrown into the opposition. And William Ruto was one of the senior members of the party at that time, being actually Secretary General. I was the whip of the opposition. So it's fair to say that I've had a lot of interactions with him over time.
And you'd argue that you knew him pretty well?
Well, I could say to a very good extent.
I'm backing that up with this follow-up question. You earlier, when you started, addressing this whole issue of the abductions, you said he persuaded you to join his bandwagon to form the Kenya Kwanza coalition, and you discussed this issue of extrajudicial killings, and you loved the crafting of the manifesto and what this was going to stand for. Now, not too long after that, you are now saying, besides these abductions, you've called him a liar, and it almost appears that you are shocked at the turn of events. And my shock is that you are shocked, having known this person for all these years, and now he's president. You've called him a liar, you've called him a lot of other things. Is it that this person called President William Ruto has changed, or was it a political calculation joining him in Kenya Kwanza, and now that there's too much heat on the ground, or as they say, the ground has shifted, it almost feels like it's convenient then to find a way out, and this abduction situation is one of the ways out, to part ways, to go back to the ground, which is, quote unquote, currently hostile. Will I be correct?
Thank you, Dennis, for that question. And I think it's an important one. Let me say this. As you know, from 2013, William Ruto was deputy president for 2 terms. I was speaker for 2 terms. Mm-hmm. So as would be expected, we worked quite closely with some little, at the beginning, there was some little bit of misunderstanding between him and I regarding a proposal that I made to the amendment of the standing orders to allow, and that was as a result of a complaint that was coming from both himself and President Uhuru, that the CSs, majority of who are not politicians, were having difficulties to cope with various summonses that were being issued to them to appear before Parliament and before committees. And there was a contestation at that time that because the Constitution talks about CSs not being politicians and not being members of Parliament, then the argument was, which was being advanced, that CSs cannot be summoned before Parliament. They can appear before committees, but they can't appear before the plenary of the houses. I held the view, buttressed again by a constitutional provision, Article 125, that says either House of Parliament or either of its committees has power to summon any person to appear before it to give information or evidence in their possession. Clearly, House of Parliament sits in plenary. That was my argument. William Ruto did not quite agree with that view. And when I tried to, I even caused people to do comparative, studies in the US, in Philippines, in Brazil, in Senegal, in France. In fact, Duale and I traveled to France to just see how they have their mix of both the president and prime minister. Now, that's the only time that I remember we had a tiff, because when I called the CSs to take them through this, what I was proposing, at a breakfast meeting which was covered by the media in the dining hall, President Ruto, when I went back to the office, I found they had called me about more than 10 times. When I called him, he told me, I have committed a constitutional coup. I got very surprised. In fact, I laughed. I told him, no, what do you mean? But you people, you and the president are the ones who told me to look for a way of minimizing the frequency of summonses. And I had come up with a proposal that, and even now it is in the standing orders, that they will be coming on two selected days, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, because I knew Thursdays were cabinet days. So we argued a bit. I said, well, you retain your position, but I will not amend the standing orders again. They will remain like that. In fact, quite surprisingly, I may now again disclose this to the country. Immediately he was declaring the president. He immediately began wooing some parties which were in Azimio. The first one of being UDM, the one from Mandera. On a day he was admitting them at Karen. That he had not left Karen. I was shocked when President Ruto said that he wants the new system, the new government, that cabinet secretaries will find ways where cabinet secretaries will be appearing before the Houses of Parliament to explain government programs and the policies, so that because they don't have another opportunity to do so, so that Kenyans can also understand what government is doing. I listened. I said, "Oh, it's a 360 degrees turn." But I was happy. In fact, as you would expect, I was happy to hear him say that, because it meant that what I had put in the standing orders at the end of the first term was not going to be affected, to be changed again. But let me also say this. One of the things that, even as William Ruto wooed me, which made me give him what I would call the benefit of doubt. Remember, from 2018 March, after the handshake between Prime Minister Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, the country knows they started developing some misunderstanding, kind of some distance between Uhuru and Ruto. And on many occasions, William would call me and ask me, JB, what is happening? what have I done to our friend, the president? And as would be expected, I would also go reach out to the president whenever I met him. I said, what is happening? It doesn't appear like you people are, tagging along together as you used to. So, as things, I'm sure most of it is well known is in the public domain. Things moved from bad to worse, and, Tanga came, which it actually caused me a lot of pain to an extent. Again, I may disclose this. I actually approached the then Cardinal John Jue, and I asked him, I pleaded with him. I went to his office. I was speaker. I went to his office and pleaded with him, explained to him what was happening, and I said, now these two people don't appear to be working together, and it's not good. It's making even the work of Parliament very difficult. Can you find time? Look for other senior clergy of your stature. Try to bring these two people together. And I left. So a lot of the things that were happening at that time actually made me also feel that maybe he was not being treated very, very, fairly. And I was quite sympathetic to what he was saying, because I never got to understand what was bringing about that tension between the two, because none wanted to discuss, or to own up to what it is that may have happened between the two of them. So, but given the way things were moving, and what was happening to him attracted a lot of sympathy from not just myself, but from very many people. I would say even from the clergy. A large part of the clergy were quite sympathetic to him, because he appeared to be the innocent party in that tension between the two of them. So I must say, I may have been one of those that I can say, I don't want to say I was duped. I don't think I wasn't duped.
But are you saying that William Ruto, the deputy president then, and William Ruto, the president today, are two totally different people?
Not just two totally different people. Even William Ruto today, the president, has two personalities. I've said this before. The William Ruto who will stand before the podium and tell people all manner of stuff. I don't want to see corruption in my government. When you hear William Ruto telling you that he knows more about your minister than you do, it is true. Because William Ruto is the kind that will be talking. He is very fond of, for instance, talking to procurement officers. That's an area where he really loves getting to know more about ministries. I was lucky that as Attorney General, even if he purported to know, there was nothing he would have known about the office of the Attorney General better than I did, because the work of the Attorney General is advisory.
Indeed.
Mainly advisory. And even as he kept telling ministers to go out there and explain to the public what the government is doing, I told him, what would the AG go to tell people that have written so many advisories to so many ministries? That doesn't happen. So, Dennis, I think, to be fair, I must say, I must have gone to the side of the sympathy that had developed. And remember, I had also moved around as a presidential candidate, round and held several meetings, and in very many fora, I discovered that even the general public were quite sympathetic to William Ruto.
What about now?
Yeah.
Oh, now is a different. Many of the pledges that we made, many of the promises that we, of course, so many, broken promises. You remember how many projects have been launched, relaunched. Roads have been launched today. You see equipment there. 2-3 days down the road, they are taken away. And you see, these things, Mwananchi is seeing.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the next day to say, oh, we are going to do this other road, this other, people, but how? You haven't done this one, which you launched the other day.
Quick question. NGCDF, the use of the road fund, you are Speaker, you are Attorney General, you are in Cabinet. And this have become issues that are very passionate, clearly, for MPs. What is your take on this, given your long service to this country?
I want to say this. I was a member of Parliament first when there was no CDF. And then second, when CDF was introduced in 2000. Actually, we were the people who passed the law, the first CDF Act, which was moved and mooted by the former member of Parliament for Kipipiri, former Senator of Nyandarua, Engineer Karue. That move to introduce CDF, and I'll be I'll be general, because I have too much detail. It was knee-jerk reaction to a desperate situation that members of Parliament found themselves in at that time. Because if you are not so-called development conscious, you stood no chance of being elected. And the government of the day at that time would always fund some preferred people, and they would always go to functions, make huge cash donations. I mean, a member of Parliament didn't have the wherewithal to match that. And therefore, that's why I say it was a desperate move by members of Parliament, particularly the backbenchers, to look for something that can give them some feasibility in the area of what was then known as said to be development, construction of this or the other. But come 2013, when I became Speaker, I found that there had been some minor amendments to the CDF Act, but remained largely the same. Members of Parliament were, then chairman of the respective CDCs. But TISA, the Institute for Social Accountability, had gone to court to challenge the the CDF, as it then was, Act of 2013, in the context of the new Constitution of Kenya 2010. I remember I've held several meetings with members of Parliament at individual levels, and this is something that I've maybe I could explain, because I've been challenged by some people who have told me, oh, you never spoke about it when you are Speaker. What? Remember, as Speaker of a House of Parliament, this Constitution is very clear, Article 122, has no vote. A Speaker is not actually not expected to even go and express his or her opinion out there on any matter that could find itself on the floor of the House for debate. Reason being, and that is a respected and tradition the world over, because the Speaker has no vote, the Speaker cannot introduce a motion, the Speaker cannot introduce a bill.
Yeah.
Even committees which the Speaker chairs, and you have seen it, even the Committee on Appointments, you don't see the Speaker contributing, yet the Speaker chairs that committee. The motion for adoption of the report or otherwise is always moved by either the leader majority or the majority whip or deputy speaker, because the deputy speaker is somebody elected.
Yeah.
It is a tradition that really is unspoken, is unwritten in many areas, but here in Kenya we made it very specific in the Constitution. Article 122, no, the speaker has no vote. So the only way you have as a speaker is to talk to, there are some influential members.
Filibustering of some sort.
Not filibustering. You as a speaker, because people develop respect.
Yes.
So you also know, from that vantage position you sit, you know who are the people who speak on various motions and they can be listened. One of the people, and I always say this, who during my tenure, particularly the first time, that I really admired and always listened to were some people. One was the late Jacobo Midiwo. Two, the current CS Treasury, John Bundy, very good debater, and he argues very logically.
Yeah.
Another one is this lady. People don't misunderstand her a lot. Millie Odhiambo. She's a very, very good legislator, and a few others. Of course, there could be leaders or majority who are given speaking time because of their position in the constitution. So these are the kind of people from time to time you call quietly. And I've had many discussions that, please, this thing called CDF is unconstitutional. Because the greatest gain in this constitution is devolution. One of the greatest gains alongside the Bill of Rights is devolution. Now, what did we devolve? We devolved resources, power, first power, and then resources. And brought in the concept of participation of the public.
Yeah.
So that once the resources have been devolved, it is those people who have been given the power by the people to go invite them. These are resources. How do we apply them? Now, in that kind of situation, where does CDF sit? CDF sits at the constituency level.
Yes.
So it tends to create a third layer. The constitution has only created two layers.
Yeah.
And that's why I kept telling my friends who would listen. But of course, I knew I was in the minority
at that time.
Actually, let me disclose. As a result of the frustrations that I saw with the members, I managed to change the standing orders after discussions with a number of them and staff. And didn't say it because whenever the Auditor General goes to audit, whenever there is expenditure of public funds, the Auditor General, and I also let me say this for the record, the Auditor Generals, the world over, are the technical arm of parliaments, not just the Kenyan Parliament, because it is the Auditor General who helps parliaments and parliamentarians to exercise oversight properly.
Yes.
Because it is the Auditor General who will show how public resources have been applied and where they have been misapplied, reports to Parliament. That's why they always report to Parliament. So the Parliament can exercise proper oversight. I was saddened the other day when I saw members of Parliament criticizing the office of the Control Budget and Auditor General, because those are their technical advisors.
So from your opinion...
So the point I want to make is this.
Yes.
I had seen several reports from the Auditor General which faulted certain processes in many constituency committees, CDF committees. But whenever the reports went before the Public Accounts Committee, they would always be given clean bills of health. So I kept saying, no, this is not right. And then many of you will know there's some members of Parliament who are still even in court for misappropriation of resources under the CDF. So I kept asking, how is it that EACC is able to go and find this? Auditor General has reported, but the parliamentary committee responsible
can't find it.
Or
won't find it.
So we came up with this committee today. They call it Special Funds Accounts Committee. But I asked the question, who are going to be the members? Oh, we discussed what they said. I said, can we have only nominated members? They said, no. That was rejected. These are not things that you are saying on the floor because the speaker has no authority to do that. So you're discussing
in the periphery,
in the offices. They said we will have independent members who are elected as independent. But I said, they also come from constituencies. They have constituencies.
Yes.
So finally they agreed to do a Special Funds Accounts Committee because it was also too much work for the Public Accounts Committee. But even after that, nobody has ever been faulted by that committee, no constituency, because there's so much inbreeding.
Yes.
Begging the question, then, who will watch the watchers?
Absolutely. Now, based on that question, forming an opinion right now, or even what you think, do you believe that CDF then, as it is right now, should be scrapped?
Can I give you a straight answer?
Please do.
Yes. But let me just qualify or justify, not qualify. On the 8th of August 2022, the Supreme Court, this case started, the Supreme Court, in a very well-reasoned judgment, went to great lengths to explain why CDF is unconstitutional. One of the grounds was, first, it offends the principle of separation of powers. Implementation of projects and programs, no matter how well-meaning, how helpful they may be, is a function of the executive, both at the county and at the national level. I'm saying this deliberately, because it was in that judgment. They said it cannot be, whether the member of parliament says that he is just a patron, but haven't we seen them go and say, I'm paying a lot of bursaries. How do we know how many people are given bursaries? Why don't we just, my proposal is, why don't we just make education free? After all, Article 43 makes it a right.
True.
From the lowest level to secondary level. Because at the university, there's the space for loans, all those kind of things. Because how will I know how many people have been given bursary by the member of parliament? How many have been given by the MCA, by the woman rep, by the governor, by the ministry? Because even the ministry also gives, by the president. How many Kenyans will reach the president again to get a bursary? Surely. This thing is just creating a dependency of sorts so that people can keep going to beg. We move from begging the president to begging the governor to begging the MCA to begging the kneeling. I've seen recently when we were doing a public participation, people say, oh, CDF has helped me, bursary, my children have been educated. But is it not true that the others who have not been educated?
True.
So who caters for those ones?
So what solves the problem? If NGCDF were to be removed from essentially the purview of members of parliament, where would this odd 100 million shillings per constituency every year go? Who should handle it?
It is not 100, it's 184.
Right, okay, almost 200.
So 200 million per year.
Where should this money go, and who should handle it to take care of these same issues that we speak about? Because
when the law was amended in 2015, they called it NGCDF. So that now members of parliament claim that they do classrooms for both primary and secondary schools, because those are national government function. And remember, under the Constitution, 4th schedule, they do the administrators' offices. Yeah? You've seen that.
Yes.
They even build police stations. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Then they give bursaries. My position is this: the building of schools should be a function of the executive. Give the money to the Ministry of Education. It has a planning department to do throughout the country. And if you want equity, that should be the case. Building police stations and administrators' offices, there's a Ministry of Interior and National Coordination. Give the money to them. Let them build chiefs and whoever offices throughout the country without discrimination. Let members of parliament oversight to see whether that is being done. You have appropriated the money to those ministries. It is your responsibility to check whether it is being done. Not to go and do it yourself, because if you do, then you conflict the oversight function. Because if you don't do it correctly, if we come to your constituency and find that there are some people who are saying they have never received bursary, what are we going to do with you? When the report comes, if the Auditor General brings the report to Parliament, it is certain, or it is given a clean bill of health. So I'm just saying, and I know it. I'm saying this. I'm very, very dispassionate about it. I know people will argue it has done this, it has done the other. But the mere fact that somebody keeps, along in the village, you have a thief who when he steals, he comes to your local church and donates. Doesn't make stealing a virtue. Yeah. So it is true. It has done very many good, positive things. But please, it is violating this constitution, which we also to protect, defend, and uphold. That's my position.
Beyond it being a constitutional issue, you are on record also calling the NGCDF that it's a corrupt, illegal, and unconstitutional slush fund. Should the other argument also be, apart from abolishing it, as you're saying, should it then be reformed to align with the Constitution and also enhance transparency?
Yes, my proposal about the reforming it is, if there are those functions that you say you want done, there are things that you want to see done in your constituency.
Yes.
It is possible for Parliament to ring fence the resources that go to the line ministries that are supposed to do those functions. Ring fence those resources, that so much, 184 million this year, will go to Karachuonyo constituency to do schools, offices of administrator, this, and put the money in the line ministries, and then ring fence it. Then you oversight.
Yeah.
But don't be the one to go and do it. It's not right. It looks very incestuous. It's an incestuous relationship.
So many things happened even after, with... You alluded to some of the things that whereby there were people who came out. The real politic of this then came out. There are individuals who said certain things. We then saw a conglomeration or consolidation of government, which is now often called broad-based, right? I'm interested in what your thoughts are around a government that was then now brought together. People from other divides earlier then came together singing the same song. What are your thoughts around the new government, as it were?
Well, let me say this.
Yet a few months ago, they were at loggerheads.
Let me say this. Well, it's the right of people to belong to government if they so desire. But of course, if you are, for instance, elected on a particular platform, it becomes very difficult to see that you are able to turn and twist. Yeah? Because you'll find... I remember, for instance, actually, let me just give a live example. My good friend, C.S. Oparanya, one time, he really criticized Hustler Fund when during the campaigns, because you remember he had already been proposed to be in the event as Mio won, he was going to be the Minister for Finance.
True.
I remember he vehemently, and he made sense. The arguments he was advancing made a lot of sense. That this is, you cannot grow a country this way. You're going to give people loans of 500 and blah blah blah. Now, to answer you. Now, Oparanya is in charge of the Hustler Fund.
And it's the best thing since sliced bread, yes.
And the other day he said, in fact, it has advanced a lot. In fact, this week, I saw a report that he said it has advanced a lot of money to many people. So that just explains the point that you just raised, that, it becomes very difficult. And now, of course, when you now extend it to Parliament, it's even worse. It's even worse. Because there are positions that are clearly reserved for the people in the majority and those that are in the minority. Yeah. Today, you can't quite tell. But this is not the first time it is happening, I must say. It happens once from around, you remember when the punch in the Uhuru and second term, when Akinaduale were being thrown out.
Yeah.
Just to remind Kenyans, because I was the speaker.
Yes.
I laughed when I saw the list of the people who are being proposed for to chair committees. One of them, my very good friend, the governor of Homa Bay, she became the chair of the finance committee. You know, the chair of the finance committee, you know, you are supposed to be in constant touch with the Ministry of Finance. Yes, yet just a few months before, she was the one criticizing that ministry so vociferously. So I looked at it and I said, oh, when she would now come to me and tell me she's proposing this bill, a finance bill, but I say, oh gosh, how things change.
Just a quick question, sir. Will Kenya ever have a sanitary, sensible political system?
I think it is doable, it is possible, but only if everybody agrees to be obedient to the Constitution. We are to make a decision whether we want to be governed by the rule of law, whether we want to respect institutions, their independence, allow them. You know, I always say, the person that criticizes me helps to make me a better person tomorrow. I never read, I never read Malays. I always say, yeah, because I have that background also in the judiciary, that a lower court makes a decision to the best of their ability, knowledge, and information and belief. People appeal to the next level. Oh, a different bench overturns you and gives reasons. Because you are bound by that, you just have to say, okay, in future, then I can't, I should avoid this kind of situation. But even that one goes to another one and is overturned. So you say, oh, sorry, then I am maybe agreeing with you. So, it should never be seen as personal. There's nothing personal. The problem we have in Kenya is one to do with governance. Yeah, we are so steeped in the old constitutional order, the operations of the one-party rule, the powers of the president of those days. Yes, and I can say actually without any fear of contradiction, William Ruto seems to be very nostalgic about the imperial presidency. I saw it the other day when those two new ministers were being taken to him and being escorted by one side Musalia Mudavadi, C.S. Alice Wahome. I saw first. It never happens. Never happens. I see now this is the making of an imperial president. It's now actualizing it. But let me say, not about William Ruto. We, the people of this country, we must make a conscious decision to understand what it is we gave ourselves in this document in 2010.
It's interesting that you bring the Constitution back, because we keep referring to the very first line of the Constitution, which is in the Bill of Rights, whereby sovereignty is that of the people, and that the people are first and foremost, so that anybody then who is given a position of service, which we tend to forget, would uphold the will of the people first. We had a conversation about this over coffee this morning, and we said, are the people of Kenya ever going to be in a position whereby they are then dealt with first? That's this example that you've given. People are being escorted by people who are supposed to be doing the work of the people. When are the people of Kenya ever going to be first charge? It doesn't matter who it is, whether there is an opposition, whether it exists or not, we don't know. But when will that be? And if you'd allow me just to add a little bit more to that, we saw you at some point being sworn in, taking an oath as a regional kingpin. This was before the election of 2022. And now we see former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now either placing himself, we know that a political party will be launched today, trying to again buy into the psyche of the people to say, I am the person to lead. But are the people of Kenya front and center in terms of priority, or is it individuals who want political expediency or just to keep lasting longer in this whole system?
Let me say, maybe the Gen Zs actually had a point when they decided to overrun Parliament. That was actually exercising the sovereign power under Article 1. Yeah, maybe they had a point. But I think because we don't appear to have learned, those of us in leadership never appear to have actually interrogated what the Gen Zs what they were saying. They're just tired of the excesses within leadership. I mean, in many spaces, both in the executive, in the legislature, in the judiciary, many right-thinking Kenyans, particularly the young people, they're just tired of us. Because today you are saying this, the next day you will swear you are going to uphold this, and what do you do when you get into office? It's just self-enrichment. In fact, we have made the leadership in Kenya look like it's business.
It's monopoly on a grand scale.
Yeah.
Buy this
like,
property,
You become this, and you suddenly want to be noticed as a millionaire or billionaire.
Yes.
I mean, surely leadership must mean something different from that. If you use a position that has been given to you by the people to enrich yourself, if we are under operational institutions today, there's no reason why Parliament of Kenya should not exercise their power under Article 145 and impeach the president. Because he has violated this constitution in his own admission. He has admitted that people have been abducted. He says he's going to end it. Therefore now been returned to the. How many were returned, by the way? Who ensured that they were returned to their families? Because, Mr. President, you seem to know that. So, who took them to their families? Who had abducted them? First, you deny it is not government. Two, you deny you have no capacity to even arrest those who are doing it. So, actually, having admitted that you don't know who it is that is doing it, should that the moral thing, the natural thing, should it just be to resign? Yeah, because you are elected to actually just protect the lives and the property of the people of Kenya. If there are strangers coming into this country and causing mayhem, violating Kenyans by abducting and killing them, and you don't know, you are saying you have no capacity, then what are you leading?
You earlier mentioned,
I'm just a bit, these things, and I'm just responding to this question, shall we ever be able to write our politics?
Yes.
And you asked me about the thing that happened to me in 2021.
Yes.
That was a cultural thing. Yeah. You go meet with the villagers, they say they want you to be the one talking about cultural things. It's not to do with politics.
The national politics. Okay.
Just this one question quickly, because I'm following a train of thought in answering the questions that you've been asked. You talked about the Gen Z, and you talked about Kenyans being tired of the leadership and the class of leaders. Would you count yourself as one of them? And would you then consider, if that is the cry of the Gen Z and the cry of many Kenyans, that they are fed up with the current crop of leaders, you've been a leader for many years, would you then consider not joining an outfit or being crowned, but handing this over to another crop of leaders, emerging leaders, young leaders, or the Gen Zs for that matter?
Of course, that's a very good question. Emerging. But they must be available. They must be available to be told, please, take over. But it will be an act of utmost irresponsibility for me to just say that I want to vanish into thin air and seeing the kind of things that are happening. I should be able to offer my ideas. In fact, if those ones you are saying, if they are there, my business would be just to offer my ideas.
Be an advisor.
Yeah. Be an advisor. No, not this kind of advisor.
Just a question. What would your advice be to the head of state today given how the country is, what would you advise him, A, to do and B, to be?
I would advise, starting with B, I would advise William Ruto, please try. I know it's difficult, but try and be honest. Try and be honest to Kenyans. It is very hurting. It's very annoying for Kenyans from all walks of life to watch you live on television, speak what they can tell are blatant lies, and then you hear them say, "Oh, what's wrong with this? He has forgotten. It's never. It wasn't there." To A, I would advise William Ruto to do the honorable thing. Please, Mr. President, resign. You are unfit to be in that office. You have become an incorrigible liar. Kenyans know it from all walks of life. It is very hurting. It's very hurting for citizens to see their president telling lies in broad daylight. It annoys. And I hope he listens. But unfortunately, he has decided to surround himself with, praise singers, quote poets, and jesters. So I don't think whether he hears that. But my advice to him, as a part in short, Mr. President, please do the honorable thing. Resign today.
Let's assume he resigns. Who do you think is fit to be president of Kenya?
The Constitution is clear on that. Yeah.
No, I'm actually.
But let me also say this: even as I address this issue, because of the pain that many families in this country have gone through, I have been making a clarion call for the setting up of a commission of judicial inquiry to inquire into all these atrocities, not limited to abductions and extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances, but even economic crimes. And when that happens, let the recommendations be acted on, because that's the other weakness we have in this country, because we don't value governance. There must be. And even if it doesn't happen, those of us that are out here, we are in the process of, we are coming up with proposals like, what can we have something like a transition to justice commission? Because things must happen that must teach all of us that public office must never be used for personal aggrandizement, to enrich yourself and your families. We are thinking of on those lines. Yeah.
Let me ask you a final question. I mean, we've extended time and very graciously you've done that with us today. Of course, the questions are then, will you be making your way back into some kind of elective arena? But then beyond that, we seem to have what would seem like a crisis constitutionally, where the court did declare that the impeachment of one Rigathi Gachagua did not happen procedurally. And then that means that the appointment or the bringing in of the current deputy president then is unconstitutional. You, I mean, having been a judicial officer, a lawyer also, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I always had reservations about the process and even looking at the substance. But I think to the extent that the matter actually is still under active litigation, it might be unfair for me to comment. But I think it is telling That was a very major judicial pronouncement from the Court of Appeal. It is one that should set everybody wondering whether there's somebody, maybe actually giving hope to Kenyans that maybe there are some people who care about processes, who care about this constitution. But your first question, well, nothing.
Are we going to see JB Muturi asking for Kenya's votes in some capacity or another?
There's nothing wrong with me asking, because it's a constitutional right. It's one thing for me to offer myself for whatever position, but it's another thing for the citizens to express themselves whichever way. But for me, I always respect the decision of the citizens.
There we go.
Yeah.
Justin Bidan Muturi, former Attorney General, also talking about many things. That's an interesting note about a commission of inquiry into what may have happened to people, because at the end of the day, if anything that we do here is to insist that the will of the people, the protection of the people, the sovereignty of the people must be upheld. We want to thank you for being with us here this morning. We've extended this show in an uncharacteristic manner by 30 minutes, but we thank you for being with us even as we did. It was good to hear your expressions on certain things.
Thank you very much.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.